Hey people, so I haven't posted anything here in a very long time, clearly. And yeah, I've gotten a lot more free time now. I'm pretty free. So we're gonna try this YouTube thing again and maybe we'll see how it goes. So I'll start off by talking a bit about this video format that I would like to try and what it entails. Priorly, my videos were mostly about, I couldn't even say mostly because I've posted maybe 4 videos in total. But it was like working out and talking about my journey for other things, whatever, doesn't matter. All you gotta know is that it was not this. It was completely different. And this rubric, which I don't know what I'm gonna call yet, but I think Real Talk, is a pretty good name. What this rubric is about and what these videos are gonna be about primarily are generally just random topics. It's kind of whatever seeps into my head, whatever I find interesting, whatever I want to talk about, and I don't have, an immediate person to talk about with. I'll just talk to the camera, talk to myself, and talk to YouTube. Maybe eventually we'll get some people watching. Some people can tell me what they want to talk about, what they want me to talk about, give my opinions on whatever. If it's ever gets to that level, we'll see. I think these videos are primarily going to be just me yapping away, giving my opinions, talking about random stuff. We'll see how it goes, like I said. To explain today's video a bit, it's a very seemingly random topic, and it's going to be about nicotine. And the reason I chose to talk about nicotine is because I actually had a pretty big problem with nicotine, primarily with nicotine pouches. But, in this video, I just want to talk about generally a nicotine addiction. So it doesn't matter if you're smoking cigarettes, vaping, nicotine pouches, whatever form of nicotine consumption you have, we'll talk about it a little bit. And then also in this video, I want to, there's a couple more things I want to talk about. So obviously, I'm going to tell you about myself. I'm going to tell you what happened to me. We're going to nerd out a bit about nicotine as well and how it affects you, why it's so addictive. I'm going to talk about why I think it's important to understand what it does, and also why it's important not to be addicted. And I'll put timestamps for every section if you're not interested, or if you want to skip over, you don't want to listen to me talk, listen about me, whatever. If you don't, there's timestamps, there's sections you can skip and listen to whichever part of the video you want to listen to. So feel free. Let's start off by talking a bit about me. I'll tell a bit about myself. I've had a pretty big problem with nicotine pouches, and some of you may know it again as nicotine pouches, some of you may know it as Zins or snus, whatever name you want to call it. That's what I was addicted to. Also, I want to preface me talking about any of this with a few things. One, I am not a professional. I have very little clue of exactly what I'm talking about. I just have enough of an understanding to where I can talk about it and I can provide my opinion, my ideas. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, because these opinions and what I'm going to tell you comes from my personal experience, what worked, what worked out for me, how it happened to me. Do not, I'll give you some maybe ideas possibly, but do your own research. There are 2 very good videos that I'm going to link below. One is by Andrew Huberman about nicotine. Very good video. I know Andrew Huberman has gotten into some trouble, earlier in the last year or so, but the video is great. If you don't want to support it, don't support it. I don't care. And another one is by Neuroscientifically Challenged, another great channel explaining what nicotine does and how it works. So those are 2 good resources that you can look into if you want to research yourself a bit. And yeah, now we can actually start talking about what I want to talk about. Let me start by telling you a bit about myself. I was incredibly addicted to nicotine pouches, and luckily I never got addicted to vaping or smoking cigarettes or cigars or any other form of nicotine, but I was very addicted to nicotine pouches. Nicotine pouches, Zins, snus, whatever you might know it as. There you go. I was addicted to that. And for the longest time, I couldn't even admit to myself that I had a problem. I couldn't. I thought, you know what, if I want to, I don't have to throw another pouch in. I don't have to throw snooze in. It doesn't help me. It's just a fun thing to do. And it got to a point, where I was spending a lot of money, honestly. I was spending a lot of money, and a lot of time in my day was spent under the influence of nicotine, air quotes, under the influence of nicotine. And yeah, it gets to a point where it is a problem and you still can't admit it. And I think that's the issue with a lot of people. They say the first step to treating an addiction is admitting you have a problem, but many people don't even realize they have a problem. I didn't realize I have a problem because I was never addicted to anything before. I never had an addiction that, controlled my body to an extent that gave me cravings that, wow, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. I never had that before. So for me, this was a very new experience, if you can call it that. And again, I didn't even see it as a problem. I thought it was whatever. And I've had many, and I still have many close friends, close people. I've had close people in the past that were very addicted to vaping or smoking or, again, nicotine pouches. And it's terrible. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing to see. Your mood and how you treat people, your behavior in general is so dependent on this external chemical that you're consuming. When your behavior is controlled by such a thing, it's not good. It's not a good sight, and it sucks to see people go through that. And I've known many people who want to quit. They still struggle, they relapse, and they struggle and they relapse. And it happens all the time. Because it is very difficult to quit, and we'll talk a bit about why it is so difficult in a minute. And for me, I developed a very good relationship with nicotine, which sounds weird, and it is weird. It's not normal. But throwing in nicotine pouches has helped me a lot through very stressful situations. When we broke up with my last girlfriend, as bad as that sounds, nicotine, this nicotine addiction that I had already at the time has helped me to cope through that situation. And honestly, it helped me reduce anxiety. It helped me to some extent deal with that problem, deal with those emotions. But looking back at it, it was a very unhealthy way to cope with my problem. It was a very stupid way to cope with it. And I should have obviously never gone through with that. But it happened. And so I developed a pretty good relationship with nicotine. I was, whenever I had anxiety, whenever I was stressing, I could throw in a pouch and wow, magically everything is gone. Everything feels okay. I'm buzzed. The only thing I can focus on is, wow, this is amazing. I love this. Wow. This sounds like propaganda for nicotine, but believe me, it's not, okay? It is not. Because the side effects of that were much worse, at least for me. Although I didn't realize it at the time, I've actually started losing a lot of weight because nicotine decreases hunger, which again, we'll talk about in a little bit, but I've lost a lot of weight. I've lost muscle mass. I have not been, when I was addicted, I stopped hitting the gym as often, which sounds, weird, but because I was always pretty much malnourished because I didn't eat enough. And yeah, it got pretty bad. It got pretty bad pretty quick. I'll just put it like that. And by, to the, I would say climax of my addiction with nicotine, I must have been spending maybe 30, 40 pounds, about $40, $50 a week on just nicotine pouches because I was throwing them in so often, and I don't have it anymore. I used to have a little wall of, nicotine pouch cans that they come in on my shelf. A lot of cans. I don't know how many there were, but I threw all them out either way, so whatever. But that's how bad it got. And again, I did not see a problem with it. And honestly, the biggest thing that opened my eyes to the fact that I do have a problem was a conversation with my sister. I don't know if she's watching this, but shout out to my sister. She has helped me tremendously just by having a real conversation with her, real talk. We had a really good conversation, and although at the time I didn't necessarily agree with everything she had to say, looking back at it, it was a really good conversation, and it has helped me a lot. Yeah. So now I'm good. I'm not addicted anymore. I don't have the cravings or urges to throw in nicotine pouches. And again, we'll talk a bit about how I came off of that and how it helped, what I did to help me stop in a second. But yeah, that's me. Nicotine has helped me through a lot of problems and also caused a lot of problems. But let's talk about a bit how nicotine works and how it affects your body. So obviously there's different forms of ingestion of nicotine, like such as smoking, vaping, nicotine pouches. There's also nicotine patches, nicotine gum. Either way, there's a lot of way to ingest nicotine, and all of them affect your body slightly differently, but generally, all the same. What nicotine does, the first thing we're gonna talk about is how nicotine affects your hunger, right? So nicotine actually increases your metabolic rate, and what that means is that it essentially decreases how hungry you are. And different forms of nicotine, affect you in different ways. Again, at different speeds. So, for example, nicotine pouches are the slowest way to get nicotine in your system, into your bloodstream, compared to vaping or smoking. Smoking is pretty fast, and vaping is the fastest way, pretty much, to get nicotine in your system, aside from maybe like intravenous injections. But I don't know who would be doing that with nicotine, So we're gonna discard that. Primarily, we're gonna talk about nicotine pouches, smoking, and vaping as one category today, just to keep things simple. So yeah, nicotine increases your metabolic rate, which essentially decreases hunger, which is why you see all those videos about man breakfast, like a beer or a Red Bull and a nicotine pouch, or girl breakfast, vape and coffee, vape and water, whatever. That is why, because it actually decreases your feeling of hunger. And, partially, that's why it was so difficult at one point to come off of nicotine, which would sound weird. But every time I would get hungry in my room, or I would be hungry outside and I didn't want to eat in the moment, or I couldn't eat in the moment, I would just throw in a nicotine pouch and boom, it's gone. I'm not hungry anymore, or not as hungry, maybe thirsty, but not as hungry. I don't need to eat. Wow, effectively replacing food, because who needs to eat when you have nicotine? And that made it so much more challenging, definitely, to come off, because when I got off, every time I wanted to eat, the first thing that I associated it in my head with is not going to get food, it's actually throwing in the nicotine pouch. And that is a dangerous mindset to have. And that's the same thing that people who vape have, who smoke. Every time you think of food, you might automatically think, I have to hit my vape, I have to throw in a nicotine pouch, I have to go smoke a cigarette, because it's an easy way to get rid of the feeling of hunger. So next, let's talk a bit about why nicotine is, one, so hard to quit, and two, how it affects your brain, and not, your body. So nicotine actually passes through the blood-brain barrier, which essentially is a fence, between your brain and everything else that goes on in your bloodstream. But yeah, nicotine passes through it and has extremely rapid effects on your brain. Obviously, it releases dopamine, and very, very copious amounts of dopamine. It does this via the mesolimbic reward pathway, or what people also refer to as the dopamine reward pathway. And the way Andrew Huberman describes it in his video, which again will be linked in the description, consuming nicotine is like flooring the acceleration pedal for your dopamine reward system and completely cutting off the brakes. So your brain just keeps releasing dopamine more and more and more and more and more. And it can't stop releasing dopamine because nicotine acts as an inhibitor to, again, like the brakes, So what this does in turn, this copious release of dopamine, is it increases your motivation, your focus, your positive feelings, and decreases feelings of sadness. Very convenient, right? So that is precisely why nicotine is so difficult to quit. That is why once you really get onto it, and once you're hooked to nicotine, it is just extremely difficult for even your brain to part with it and be like, you know what, I don't need it anymore. I don't need nicotine. I will just produce my own dopamine, like easy peasy. And that is why if you pair nicotine with activities that already produce a lot of dopamine very fast, it gets even worse. So if you're used to doom scrolling or watching YouTube videos all the time or watching Netflix or anything of that sort, you know, something that produces instant gratification, you are more likely to get very addicted, and you're also more likely to stay addicted. That is just, that is just logic. That you have to understand that, because again, your brain doesn't know to stop producing dopamine. It just keeps doing it. And okay, so now that we covered why it's, hard to quit, why it's easy to get addicted, and as stupid as that sounds, I want to talk about why it's important not to be addicted, and also why I don't like the way nicotine is portrayed in today's media, and particularly social media. So the reason why I think it's important not to be addicted, and this is kind of like a more personal thing than anything, because people might argue that, okay, it increases motivation, focus, positive feelings, decreases sadness. Why wouldn't I consume nicotine? For me, it's important not to be addicted, just because I feel like being addicted to anything, and especially external stimuli, in order to be happy and to, in order to have, friendly, approachable, loving behavior, if you need an external stimulus to do that, such as nicotine, and you need it to be happy, and you need it to not run around your whole room looking for a vape, looking for nicotine pouches. Whoa, where is it? I need a hit right now. What is going on? Why would you want that? Why would you want that? I personally don't understand. And when I realized that I didn't want that, I decided to stop, and I decided to quit, because I realized that a lot of my stress relief and general, feelings of joy came from when I was using nicotine. And, again, that might not be a bad thing. Generally seeking happiness from external stimuli might not be bad. You can go to the gym and work out and have an amazing workout, and you'll feel amazing. And that is something you went and did. You went and you were in the gym, you were lifting weights. That's what made you feel amazing. Okay, perfect. But we also have to realize that we also have to be real with ourselves here and accept that going to the gym, working out, building your body, I'm not saying, again, I'm not comparing, but at the end of the day, we have to accept that going to the gym, working out, working on your body, getting in better shape, maintaining your health, your cardiovascular health, your joint health, it's very important. And if you want to live to see 80, to see 90, you will have to exercise, and you will have to do. And if you want to live in your 60s, 70s, like a young person, if you want to be able to move like a young person, you have to exercise. So let's not compare going to the gym as an external stimulus to nicotine as an external stimulus, because these are two very different things. And I hope everybody can understand that. And I didn't want to be addicted to nicotine as an external stimuli to make me happy and make me fulfilled. I did not want that. So again, I decided to quit. And I think it's important for everyone to quit, because again, why would you want to rely on this one chemical, this one little thing, a vape, a vape or a nicotine pouch to keep you happy, to keep you away from stress, when there's very obviously better ways to deal with that. And the reason why I don't like the way it's portrayed in social media, particularly these days, is because it feels like people are trying to normalize it. It feels like people are very much trying to normalize nicotine usage. You always see these videos of people there's a wooden cutting board and steak on it, and then there's a Red Bull and a can of 6 milligram snooze, or you know, girl breakfast, again, girl breakfast, you know, vape, coffee, man breakfast, etc. All of that. And again, a lot of people, you know, they don't even know anything about nicotine or what it does to you, or you know, I'm sure many people have an idea, but they don't actually know what it does. And you know, that's why I'm saying, you know, I gave a very surface level description of what it does. If you want to better, again, please, if you don't know what it does and you're considering either trying it or you've already tried it and you feel like you're having trouble, please look into it, understand what it does, and just trust me, it's gonna help you. Okay, trust me, it helped me. I'm sure it's gonna help you. And yeah, I don't like that. I don't think promoting any unhealthy behavior is good. I don't think it's the same with the gym culture. I know this is a little bit of a, you know, a little off topic, but you know, promoting steroid use and normalizing, oh wow, I'm using steroids, I'm so much bigger now. Like, come on, like, are we seriously pushing this to a younger generation? Are we seriously talking about this to kids who are young and who can make proper decisions for themselves? And now we have people, you know, doing steroids, smoking cigarettes, and screaming, hell yeah, this is so dope. Like, why would, no, don't do that. Nobody should be doing that. Like, no, nobody should be doing that. Nobody should be advocating for that. That is a very bad thing, period. Okay, that's it. This last section is going to be what helped me quit and why I think and what I think might help other people. So, number one, obviously you have to admit that you have an issue, because a lot of people don't admit to it, and a lot of people don't even think they have an issue. The same thing happened to me. As I mentioned, you know, I was lucky enough to have a person who told me this. Now I'm telling you people this who might potentially be wanting to quit nicotine. If you are consuming nicotine on a daily basis, you probably have a problem, and you're probably not admitting it to yourself. If you need me to tell you this, that is the first thing. That is a very important, but that is the first thing, because you know, if you don't think you have a problem, you're never going to take proper steps to actually deal with the problem. So the way I approached my addiction, again, I was addicted to nicotine pouches, and you could argue that it's easier to quit nicotine pouches than it is to quit vaping or smoking. But the way I approached it is simply lowering my intake of nicotine on a daily basis, not necessarily in frequency, but you know, in dosage. So like I said, at one point I was throwing in 30 milligram nicotine pouches every day, multiple times a day, you know, upwards of 15 times a day. And that is just unhealthy and unsustainable, and it was bad. So over a span of a month and a half, I went down from 30 to 15s and 14s, then to 9, then to 6, then to 3. And after throwing in 3s for a while, and then at 3, when I reduced the frequency of me consuming it, then it was much easier to just cold turkey quitting in general. After throwing in 3, there's not such a big attachment to nicotine, because it doesn't give you the same buzz, the same feeling that you get if you're throwing in 30s or if you're throwing in 15s. Now, you could do the exact same thing with vaping. There are obviously vapes that you know, have lower dosages, but as much as that could be a solution, my biggest suggestion, and I've suggested this to many people, I haven't suggested this to many people, but my suggestion is, as stupid as this sounds, switch to nicotine pouches and do exactly what I said. Again, I believe that if after vaping for multiple years, you start throwing in 6 milligram pouches and then drop down to 3. If going from 3 to none is hard, there are even lower dosages. And if that doesn't work, there are nicotine patches at 2. There is nicotine gum at 2 to 1 or 1 to 2. There is nicotine gum at 1 to 2 milligrams. So there are options, and I found that is the easiest way that it was, and I found that to be the easiest way to quit. And just, you know, you have to And but you have to remember that at the end of the day, you have to pull the lever on this whole thing, and you have to start doing something in order to quit, or you are not going to quit. If you keep daydreaming about, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this in a week, I'm gonna do this in a month, it is not going to happen. You will keep inevitably delaying it more and more and more and more until who knows when. Until maybe it becomes such a big problem for your physical and your mental well-being that you can't use nicotine anymore. Your body is physically incapable of functioning without nicotine. And why would you want that? Again, why would you want that? So please do yourself a favor. If you're at an early stage or even in a later stage of addiction, take proper steps to quit. Educate yourself on what nicotine does, how it affects your brain. And if you don't like if you don't like my way of quitting and how I quit, and how, again, now I don't have any cravings for nicotine at all. There's many different methods. You can go get professional help. You can go talk to a doctor about it. There's many different ways to deal with it, and I encourage you to do so. So that's it. That was the video. That was real talk number 1. That was the video. That was real talk number 1. We'll see if this continues, but so far that's it. Thank you guys for watching.